All right, I'm going to move us along to the second part of the session. So I have the pleasure of welcoming our next panel. So Ezgi Barcenas from L'Oreal. She is the Chief Corporate Responsibility Officer there. And Iris van der Wecken, Executive Director of the Watch and Jewelry Initiative. Warm welcome. I think I would start as well with giving you the opportunity for a quick intro and maybe speak to your respective organization. L'Oreal possibly doesn't need presentation, but let's start with that, a quick intro, and then we can get into the rest.
I'm going to give you the floor.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. What an inspiring, incredible setting for us to come together to look for those reasons to believe. So really happy to be here. I am Ezgi Barcenas. I am originally from Cyprus. The reason why I highlight that is, you know, from a very young age, I got to see what it meant to grow up in a small community, you know, on an island surrounded by water that is highly water stressed. I come from a family, both sets of my grandparents were actually from farming communities. So again, from a young age, really understood the importance of natural resources, their finite nature, but also the importance of soil health. I was really inspired by the speech earlier as well about soil health and what that means. Trust me, there are many, many farmers out there that know and understand. They may not speak exactly the technical languages that we do in sustainability, but they are investing in their land and in their métier. So originally from Cyprus, I am currently the Chief Corporate Responsibility Officer at the L'Oreal Group, member of the executive committee, really humbled and fortunate to be leading the sustainability strategy and execution for the group and also the CEO of the Fondation L'Oreal. Really happy to be here to talk to you more about how we are tackling some of these challenges.
Fantastic, and we'll do that in just a second. Iris, first, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Iris van der Wecken. I'm actually from Belgium, living in Geneva, and I'm the Executive Director of the Watch and Jewelry Initiative 2030. We're actually a young organization that was established by two competitors, Maison Cartier, delegated by the Richemont Group, and the Kering Group. Today, we have over 70 leading brands, organizations that are really on this journey to accelerate three important interconnected topics on sustainability: climate resilience, biodiversity, and nature and inclusiveness. And like we said it so nicely earlier, we're on this journey. We really want to push the industry to more transparency, accountability, and positive impact.
Okay, and I'm going to start with you actually, Iris, since you started discussing about the organization. I feel that the Watch and Jewelry Initiative is a powerful and interesting example of multi-stakeholder collaboration. Maybe you can elaborate a bit more for the audience why you think that a model like this can bridge business and impact.
Well, this morning we heard it, I think, very well by Paul Polman, how important it is when you set up an organization that you have a very solid governance. And I think from the start, when the initiative was established, we really invested in quite a different kind of governance that is very multi-stakeholder. So when you look at our governance, on one hand, you will have the CEO of Chanel Watches and Jewelry, and you have someone like Mr. Vigneron, the former CEO of Cartier, and Marie-Claire Daveux from Kering, but also independent experts like from Social Accountability International, Global Compact, etc. And at the same time, we have advisory committees, very multi-stakeholder. So we go back to Human Rights Watch, to WWF, to different organizations. On everything that we build till date, it goes through multi-stakeholder consultation. We also have a very solid independent risk and compliance committee, because you can imagine, and you will know it as L'Oreal, when one brand gets into trouble, it will hit the total reputation of the integrity of the collective. And I think also generally when we were talking about it, you need to have leadership at the top. So I think the co-chairs of the board are really pushing the agenda that this is not a platform to talk about blah, blah. This is really about actioning, and that actioning is tough, but we are here to push the needle through advancing the industry.
Fantastic. And You talk about leadership, about governance, but purpose and values are also one key aspect if we really want to bridge business and impact. And L'Oréal, being in sustainability and seen as a leader for such a long time, certainly has things to tell us about that.
Yeah, so L'Oréal Group is the leading beauty company in the world. We are organized across 4 divisions: consumer products, professional, dermatological, and luxury. And maybe the best place to start answering that question would be our corporate purpose. Our corporate purpose is to create beauty that moves the world. And by beauty, we mean ways to champion sustainability, inclusivity, dignity, empowerment. So when you start with that, it really flows throughout our business, in everything we do, every decision we make, in how we bring that sustainability and inclusivity lens. So what does that look like? It starts with product design, how we think about our raw materials and packaging choices. It goes into our operations inside our 4 walls, how we think about efficiencies, resource use, innovation, to how we deliver those products, how do they show up on shelf, how do we work with consumers and raise awareness, but also thinking through some of the post-consumption challenges at the end of life. So it really runs across the whole value chain in how we think about sustainability, driven by our strong convictions and values. And to bring that to life, you need an incredible team, not just a core corporate sustainability team that sits at the center, away from the business or supply chain, but actually truly inside the business across functions. And I'm proud to say that I have what I would call a team of teams within the company, sitting in research, in operations, in finance, in human resources, but also in our business divisions, as I mentioned before, our zones, our countries. So it's these teams that work every day in their everyday functions and roles, in sourcing, in how they think about these sustainability challenges and opportunities to continue to find ways to unlock shared value, but also build resilience.
Okay, that's a very powerful example, and we could talk about that all day. but I think I want to stay on the theme of resilience. So I'll go with you, Ezgi, as well. I think we cannot speak about bridging business and impact in companies without talking about value chains. That's where the most negative impacts are and the most positive impacts can be as well. And so my question for you is really, in your approach, you look at climate, nature, and business resilience together and think about your value chain. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about concretely what kind of steps you're taking there.
So climate and nature are incredibly interlinked. And often what you find is in different rooms, in different settings, one gets talked about and the other one is left behind. So to give you an example, we are looking to reduce our emissions. What does that mean? We are looking to, one example, switch to more bio-based ingredients. As we're switching to more bio-based ingredients, it means that we're increasing our impact and dependency on nature around the world. If we're sourcing over 1,600 raw materials from over 300 plant species around the world, that means that we are touching and we're parts of many, many local ecosystems, sourcing communities, agricultural communities around the world, and we really have to be thinking about what does climate change look like, what is that climate impact in the field, around the field, where do we need to invest, not just on the field, but also upstream, really thinking through how are you building resilience, what does that land need, is it irrigated, is it rain-fed, again, the importance of soil health comes into play there as well, but really thinking through these elements and having that nuanced understanding of climate and nature and how, as you're looking to reduce emissions on one side, you're maybe increasing your impact on nature. But on the flip side, you could also turn to nature and identify those nature-based solutions to build climate adaptation and resilience. And again, this was a big topic that we discussed with Anna Toni, COP30 CEO, earlier this morning at a small breakfast meeting, where often we don't talk about climate adaptation and what that looks like and how we need to, again, as businesses, continue to activate and find ways to invest in these solutions as well. So really incredibly interlinked. But the last example I would give you is, well, what does climate change and the loss of biodiversity and the growing water stress look like for our consumers? This is also a big consideration for a company like L'Oréal. So how will our consumers, in an increasingly more water-stressed world, continue to carry out their daily hygiene and beauty routines? What does that look like? How do we have to rethink our product innovation? more no-rinse solutions, fast rinse solutions, in different markets to meet the needs of those local consumers and the communities. So again, climate and nature are so incredibly linked, and I think we have to find ways to continue to multi-solve. That's what I like to call it. So not just solve for climate and nature and livelihood separately, but really think through in a multi-dimensional way of how do these things come together in real-life settings for us to find those real-life solutions that can be scalable. And I'm sure we'll get to the scale topic later on.
Yeah, and super interesting. So thanks a lot. And one thing that comes to mind is also you talked about the customers, and of course they need to be part of the equation for sure. My mind goes also to the responsibility of companies and how influential companies like yours can be as well. So that's something I wanted to bring to the floor. But Iris, you work with the range of companies that also have global value chains. No wonder about that, or for now at least. So the choices that they take at design stage are very important, and they matter for climate, for circularity, for nature. Can you tell us a little bit more about the learnings from your work in there as well?
Yeah. So what we've seen, of course, within the initiative, that companies are at very different stages of maturity, depending, where they are. And I think the lessons we've learned is that some of those big brands are very advanced, and they can really bring and accelerate the others. And I'm going to give you a few concrete examples. We've really built a nature roadmap for the industry. We actually took a 12-month pathway, working with many different stakeholders to build that nature roadmap, because we saw that many companies, like you said so well, Ezgi, they look at climate, but they disconnect it from nature, and they do not think about the just transition pathway. So actually, over the past 2 years, we have developed what we call an action pathway. And this is really a pathway for companies to start understanding their dependencies on nature. So, your baseline assessment, how dependent are you from nature? What is your impact? Where you source from, depending, is it rough diamonds? Is it from Botswana? Is it from Canada? You're manufacturing in India. You're sourcing gold and different materials. And of course, everything has a positive, has often a negative impact that you have to translate to a positive impact. So what we've really been doing is working with scientists and technical experts on building a model that companies can implement depending on their size. We've worked with a technology provider in London, ESG Book. So they work with 10 of the top banks in the world on building actually a digital platform, but not just bringing companies on this probably anxiety journey, but really on a journey of education. So lots of education, help desk support with technical experts, and then the opportunity to really, put in the data so we can start benchmarking. And going back to your question on circularity, really, we're sitting here next to the 7-star hotel of L'Oréal. You're so advanced. But what we see, and I think that's the beauty, is that many young designers are really rethinking how they're going to design. And that needs a systematic change also from the education level. So I think we need to invest also working together with the brands and the suppliers from the moment working with university and schools to really change that mindset from the moment they start designing their jewelry and their watches. And we have some fantastic examples with Breitling, for example, but also ID Watch Geneva, a very young new brand. And it's good, when new brands come in, it makes the industry move.
That's fantastic, and what I really like about that are really two things. One is that both of you spoke about this connection about climate, nature, and thanks for bringing up just transition and the social side. We really resonates with the work that we do as well. And the second one is how you brought up the startups, which really, I think, matches what Alessa and Ellie were talking about before. That's a clear link, and I know that you guys are doing some fantastic work in creating an ecosystem there as well. I don't know if you want to say a few words about that. Otherwise, what I would like to hear from you is about the importance of scale as well. So we know that there are constraints, there are challenges. They could be economical, they could be resource, they could be technological related. But we also know that large companies like L'Oréal can use scale as a force of good. So can you tell us a little bit about that and your journey, and maybe some advice to the audience as well?
We are incredibly conscious of the responsibility we carry as the leading beauty company in the reach and the scale that we have around the world. And for a company like L'Oreal, born out of science over 115 years ago, we have that pursuit of excellence, innovation, and science in everything we do. We even say, science is not linear, it's exponential. So we have this firm belief that there are solutions out there, and if we put them to good use and we bring the right parties around the table for them to see how it comes to life, we can actually find scalable solutions. And the challenge we face today is not a lack of solutions. I mean, if you look at here, this incredible setting that we're in, we have, I believe, 300 startups with booths, probably hundreds more that are coming and visiting and being represented and talking and engaging with each other. So the solutions are out there. The challenge, yes, is for us to scout those solutions, identify them, but there is an even bigger challenge. Once you identify a solution, how do you bring it to scale? What does the first few years of the life of that solution look like? How does it integrate? How does a startup or a new innovative breakthrough solution integrate into a big business? How do we think about our sourcing practices, our onboarding practices of these new suppliers, the vendor agreements, the enabling environment that we can create for these solutions to come and be part of our value chain and have the freedom and the flexibility to really scale at the pace that they deserve. So one example I can give, you can also check it out. The L'Oreal booth is going to be on your right when you go down the stairs. And we also have a few startups that we're working with that are also nearby with their own exhibits. One of the startups that's down there is Abolis. It's a small biotechnology platform that is helping us identify bio-based ingredients. Again, coming back to the topic of more natural bio-based ingredients. We found this incredible partner in Abolis, but we also realized that we don't have the industrial capacity and capabilities ourselves in-house for us to be able to bring their solutions to scale. So we actually announced late last year that we got into a 3-party agreement with Evonik, one of our existing industrial suppliers. So coming together, so a startup, an industrial supplier that's bringing those industrial capabilities, and us, really not only to look for the solutions and pilot them, but actually find ways to scale them. And I think this is a big topic that doesn't often get discussed. And I can see my team members from sourcing, from research that are also sitting around the table. None of this would have been possible without their dedicated efforts to ask the right questions around how do we bring this to life? It's not just about chasing a number, a metric, or saying, hey, we found a solution, but actually being able to bring that solution to scale. So this is, I think, one example. Another one I can give, and again, I give huge credit to my sourcing and operations team, is late last year, again, we announced a new debt fund, a Solstice fund that we created to help support the decarbonization of our small, medium-sized suppliers. So as we're looking to decarbonize inside our own operations, taking the learnings and the best practices with the energy efficiency improvements, with the renewables that we're bringing into our own operations, we are now increasingly turning our attention more and more to scope 3, so upstream and downstream, the emissions that exist outside our 4 walls, and really, again, asking ourselves the questions of, okay, maybe some of our bigger suppliers are well on their way in their journey towards a net zero target. Maybe they have set some science-based commitments, they are decarbonizing their own operations, but there is still a big economic hurdle to some of the smaller, medium-sized suppliers and companies that are out there that really want to go and pursue these new solutions, but that they don't have the initial capital investment that is needed. So, the catalytic investments that were discussed earlier today, I think this is the other piece that we have to really be thinking of, again, as we're looking for those challenges, be it economic, be it technological, be it from a scale perspective, how do all these things come together so that we can continue to really bring that big transformation to life?
Thanks a lot for bringing it to life for us a little bit. The point about small and medium suppliers, I'm really happy to hear about that, because we know that it is a challenge for small suppliers that often lack the financial resources or the skills in some cases. And most of the Scope 3 work has been focusing on larger suppliers. So I'm very happy to hear that. And I want to stress one point that you just made before that, which is by calling out their different functions within the company. That's a really important sign. If we want to bridge business and impact, we need the impact and sustainability word to get outside of the sustainability word and really be embedded in there. So thanks about that. I think we have a few more minutes before the last part. But Iris, I want to ask you about, we discussed with the previous panel about the current external environment. So we know that the business case for aligning sustainability and core business strategy is not easy, or maybe it's harder than it was before. What can you tell us? How, in your words or in the way that you see it, why is it more important than ever right now? And I want to bring into the equation, we talked a lot about climate and nature as well, but we know that impacts on people and gender equality, which is a cause that you champion as well, is important.
Well, first of all, if I look at our industry, watches and jewelry, these are very emotional purchases. When you think about when you buy a piece of jewelry, it could be for self-empowerment, could be for a loved one. It's special moments in life. So it's very important that when brands are built, it takes decades to build a brand, that behind that story is a narrative that's credible and that's based not on assumptions, but proof points. And I think what I see is that our industry will continue to advance. Yes, there is definitely tension because of the fact of, I think the legal uncertainty in certain, and compliance adaptation. But I see, the continued push to move the needle. And I wanted to touch upon one point. I think what I also see is a huge acceleration towards the suppliers. As you can imagine, many of our brands are using the same suppliers, and those suppliers are squeezed sometimes in the middle. They don't have the sophisticated lawyers, they don't have the experts, they don't have the technical experts, and that's where we as an initiative are also really have put a lot of investments on, for example, science-based targets, helping them build climate resilient policies, but also, looking at their nature roadmap, etc. And I just wanted to tell to the audience also, please go to our website, but at the same time, all the materials that we are building, we want to open source it to other industries, and also the technology solution that we've just built and have tested. We launched it in Davos in January, that we're willing to give that to other industries also to build upon, because we were just talking that we will definitely have a coffee after this session, but we also need, with a lot of humility, we need to learn from others. If I think on the element of water, for example, I've learned a lot from different industries, what are the tools out there, the methodologies out there to accelerate. And then a final point on gender. It's great to see so much diversity in the room, but we know that we're 300 years behind. Through the geopolitical tension, it's going to be worse. If we want to really push and advance women empowerment, we need to see that women entrepreneurship and economic empowerment is advanced. And that's why I would ask all of you in this room to sign the Women Empowerment Principles, but also work on our gender-responsive procurement. We've been doing a very interesting pilot on that with 7 brands. Happy to share the results. How much do you know that you are buying from women entrepreneurs in your value chain, and how can you build strong coalitions? So there's no reason to leave someone behind, and I think today at Change Now and the past days shows this is a community of hope and action.
Thanks very much for that. And in reality, this is a perfect transition to the next session as well. But before I do that, I'll take the opportunity. We discussed in preparing this panel how, and I made clear in my intro how I feel that business model transformation is a critical lever to explore. And I think if you want, it could be helpful if you, I know that you've been thinking about new models within L'Oréal. If there's anything that you can share in terms of inspiration with the audience, that would be great.
Yeah, maybe as a final example, again, you can check it out at our booth on the right, down the stairs, in front of the coffee shop. Maybe one quick highlight and a quick shout out to our incredible teams, again, in innovation, in our divisions and DMIs, our marketing teams. Our refill packaging, refillable packaging. And you'll see our refill fountain. This is this fountain that actually demonstrates or showcases different brands in how we're creating circularity. So we talked about sustainable solutions in the nature of their longevity. So when you think of sustainable products and you're putting them in market, on shelf, we really have to also be thinking of how do we make them desirable. So our luxury division for the longest time actually has been really thinking through some of those design codes that come to life and how we can cherish the packaging of a product as much as we cherish the formula or the perfume that's in it. So we created these circular refillable products, and it's a brand new market, and we've been spearheading it for the last few years. The fountain you'll see downstairs was piloted a couple years ago. Now we're looking to roll it out across different retailers, and looking to learn, again, really thinking through those consumer messages that will resonate around refill more and save more, and how it can have a more positive environmental impact, but also an economic benefit to the consumer as well. So just a quick shout out and an example on circular models, yeah.
I'm going to invite you to work on our circularity white paper now with Deloitte that we're going to launch with some really great watch brands, because actually that's what we also would like for the industry to showcase. It is possible. We have an expert here in the room, Fabienne De Lupo, on really what does circularity mean, and we also want to get change that mindset at the top and through the business functions. So we have a lot to learn from L'Oréal.
Great examples. We go a long way. With that, let's conclude this panel, but please join me in a big round of applause to Iris and Nest.